Hey, Snackers, this is Kareem Iskander.
Hey everyone, Matt DiNapoli here.
Welcome to episode 180 of Snack Minute.
We have our friend Kyle, I like to call him K-Dubs, coming back.
Since when?
And
Since yesterday?
yeah, we're best friends. I am really excited I'm back. When he was here before, he did a really cool technical talk around turning your team to purple, which I found really interesting around eBPF. Today he's actually going to talk to us about some administrative things around the designing Cisco Security Infrastructure exam. And so, Kyle, please introduce yourself to our new snackers, and then we'll jump into what is it? CSDI, DCSI?
SDSI.
DCSI. Yes, SDSI. Okay. Yeah.
Jesus, man.
My bad. I don't work for you guys. So, Kyle, please introduce yourself and we'll jump right into it.
Awesome. And thank you guys so much for having me. My name is Kyle Winters. I am based in San Diego, California, and I'm a technical advocate on the Learning with Cisco team focused on certifications. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about a new certification that is out, Designing Cisco Security Infrastructure, or SDSI 300-745. It's a new 90-minute exam tied to the CCNP security certification. And what makes this exam unique is its focus on security architecture. So it's not about configuring individual tools, but about designing end-to-end security solutions that align with business needs, technical requirements, and today's evolving threat landscape. So if we take a look here, I'm sharing a slide here. Cisco kind of lays out some different major areas that the exam covers. So you've got your core technical pillars, which is secure infrastructure and applications. These are all about designing foundational security elements and protecting modern cloud-native workloads. But then the exam dives into how we manage and respond to risk, events, and requirements. That includes handling risk mitigation and compliance with industry standards. And finally, you'll also see an emphasis on forward-looking practices like automation, artificial intelligence, and DevSecOps. So these are about scaling security through intelligent tools and integrating it directly into development pipelines. So taken all together, this exam is really about testing how well you can bring all of these areas into a cohesive, secure architecture, not just in theory, but in real-world scenarios.
This is interesting as I look at the pillars that you have laid out here. And I'm sure I've said this a million times on Snack Minute, but I always feel like security, the word security is used kind of as this blanket word to kind of address generalizations that occur within infrastructure and applications and anything in between. And so it's like I'm kind of excited to see that we're actually taking the practical approach to these things. I know the design exams tend to take a little bit of a higher level look at these things, but understanding that security has specific concerns at different layers in the stack, I think is something that is super helpful for the people who are going to become practitioners, especially in DevSecOps going forward, or just SecOps in general, because I think that we find that we kind of brush that nuance and that challenge under the rug a lot of times by just saying security. But there's network security and there's application security and there's,
security is everywhere, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, it's necessary.
embedded now in everything and anything that we do. So this, I mean, it's to your point, it aligns with everything, data center, application, whatever you're doing, you have to be mindful of security. And so the security design aspect of things, like when you're designing all of this, you actually have to think of it first. So I guess my guess is this is what the blueprint is going to be all about.
Yeah, can we look at a little bit more about the blueprint and things like that?
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, if you take a look on a micro level, everything that we do has some kind of security angle to it. We obviously want to use our tools securely and work in a secure way. But there's that need on a macro level as well, too, that kind of security design and having that end-to-end picture of how you can have a secure organization operate. And that's really a big piece of kind of understanding security architecture and what this exam is really geared towards.
Can we take a look at, what the group of people are that should go into that and what the blueprint might look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who want to pursue this exam, Cisco recommends it for professionals with 3 to 5 years of experience. It could be more, it could be slightly less. but typically at least 2 to 3 years working directly with security solutions. This isn't necessarily meant for somebody brand new to the field. It's really more designed for folks who already have hands-on experience and are ready to step into a more strategic, design-oriented role. You should already be comfortable with security architecture design concepts and have familiar with common frameworks and practices like NIST, MITRE, or maybe even Cisco Safe. That foundational knowledge is really key, though, because the exam doesn't just ask what to implement, but why and how to fit it into the larger strategy. So on the right side of what I'm showing here on the screen, you'll see some different roles that this exam is really aligned to. So it could be something like a cloud or cybersecurity architect, security solutions architect, or maybe slightly different technical type role like a security engineer or DevSecOps. So this exam really helps validate and sharpen the design skills that are essential for that next step in these people's careers. In fact, what's unique about this one too is that it also makes sense for people who are in a pre-sales or security-focused sales engineering role, because in those roles, you're oftentimes mapping technical solutions and requirements to business needs. So a lot of different people that this exam can be very valuable for.
Okay, so what's in the exam?
I've got a QR code here you can scan and get to the exam blueprint. I'm sure you guys will put a link somewhere in the description as well too. But just to kind of take you a little bit through the blueprint, there are 4 main domains associated with this exam. 30% of the exam is going to cover secure infrastructure. 25% of it is going to cover applications. 30% of it is going to cover risk events and requirements, and 15% focused on artificial intelligence, automation, and DevSecOps. So let's dive into that a little bit and understand better what that means. And this is pulled directly from the blueprint here. So section 1, secure infrastructure. For this part of the exam, Cisco really wants to see that you understand how to design a secure, scalable network architecture, one that can handle today's distributed, hybrid environments. So it's not just about knowing what a firewall does, it's about selecting the right one for a given scenario. Do you go with a next generation firewall or something distributed, host-based, or even eBPF-based for microservices? You also need to think about how to protect endpoints and identities across the board, whether users are on network, off network, or remote. The exam might expect you to recognize whether multi-factor authentication, identity intelligence, or zero trust access fit into the picture. Then there's infrastructure access. How do you secure the control and management planes? Role-based access, encrypted communications, and secure management interfaces come into play here. Also, VPNs and tunneling are another big focus. Do you choose IPsec, GRE, SD-WAN, or MPLS? The exam may give you a business use case and expect you to select the most appropriate method. So overall, this domain is about testing your ability to design real-world resilient infrastructure that can support modern threats and hybrid work.
Ooh, these people are going to be superheroes.
It's a lot in this exam.
There's a lot of topics there.
A lot of topics. And I'll kind of give you some ideas and tips on how to interpret that here in a little bit. Taking a look at section 2, applications, this section of the exam really shifts the focus towards application security. And it's not just about throwing a web application firewall in front of a server. You'll really need to understand which security controls apply where. So things like SSL offloading, data loss prevention, and endpoint protections for app access. The big idea here is that applications today are built differently. Think cloud native, microservices, containers, serverless functions. The exam will expect you to design segmentation or micro-segmentation strategies for these environments because traditional perimeters just don't work here. There's also a piece about staying forward-looking in this section as well too. So technologies like generative AI and even quantum computing, they might seem theoretical, but Cisco here is saying that you need to design with emerging tech in mind. So that means accounting for new risk and ensuring your architecture can evolve with them. So if you're preparing for this domain, focus on protecting apps where they live, whether it's on-prem, cloud, or hybrid, and making sure your design is adaptable to how applications are built and used today.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. It actually came up in a conversation I was having today with our engineering team here at DevNet. We're looking at deploying some agentic type applications and leveraging MCP as well. And we're talking about where to actually host those things, how to expose the necessary services for those things through the firewall or through, for lack of a better term, some kind of access control list or a proxy service. And so understanding it's interesting how quickly, especially the AI, the generative AI stuff is coming to bear on organizations trying to figure out where the tool chains should run and how do we expose the data or services for those tool chains in a way that is secure. So it's exciting to see that you guys are including that here.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to be forward thinking in how we handle these exams and make sure that you out there are building a forward thinking security architecture as well too.
I appreciate that as part of the collective that designed this blueprint, you've put the 2.3 at a describe level, which means, yeah, quantum compute is starting. You're not expected to know depth because it's not really there yet. So
you're going to say real.
It's something, but I really appreciate it. And this is something that I think it's important for all of our snackers to know, that when you're reading this blueprint, those verbs actually matter the most.
Yeah.
I think Kyle's going to get to that. I have a feeling he's going to get to those
Oh,
words.
did I just burn it?
No, I'll come back to the exam blueprint shortly, but that's a great point to, I think, bring up front as we're continuing to go through this blueprint. So there's actually a lot of valuable information that's in the blueprint for people to decipher that they might not realize. So you've got, for example, the domain, which is that high level topic. But then attached to that is a domain weight as well, which will tell you essentially what percentage of the exam this topic covers. So in this particular case, 30% is focused on secure infrastructure. So expect to spend around 30% of your time focused on this particular domain. Now, inside of there, you have individual tasks as well as subtasks, and those give you a stronger idea as to what is covered. But take kind of a close look, for example, at the task. At the very beginning of it is a verb, and these blueprint verbs have particular meaning. You might see things like describe and match, select or modify. In some exams, you might see things like configure as well too. Those verbs have some significant meaning to them, and they essentially allude to what depth of knowledge you need to be prepared for. So if you're seeing something like describe and match, you might not need as deep of a level of knowledge as something if you are going to then go ahead and modify or configure something. So as you're going through that blueprint, definitely pay attention to those blueprint verbs, because that'll give you some good idea as to what level of depth you need to go into each one of those topics and subtopics.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
All right, we threw him off, so now let's see if he can go back and get back into the blueprint review.
So now that you have that tip, let's go ahead and jump into topic 3, risk, events, and requirements, which is 30% of the exam. So in this particular domain, things get a little bit more strategic. So the exam wants to see that you can think like a security architect, responding to incidents, modifying designs based on risk, and working with compliance requirements. So you'll need to know how a SOC operates, what tools they use, how incidents are handled, and how response strategies feed back into design changes. But it's not just about reacting, but rather about improving the architecture afterwards. So this blueprint, it also covers security frameworks. So you should be familiar with things like NIST 800-37, Cisco Safe, and MITRE CAPEC. These help structure security design through its life cycle, and the exam may test you on how to apply them in real-world scenarios. Lastly, there's also a compliance piece to this section. You might be given a scenario and asked to match it to something like GDPR, HIPAA, or PCI. The point here is to show that you understand how different regulatory requirements influence the design of secure systems. So really, it's about tying in together that design piece, operations, and governance.
I am so not going to take this certification exam. I have no idea half of these things.
I thought when Kyle read MITRE, when he talked about MITRE CAPEC, you laughed and thought, you're a MITRE CAPEC.
I actually laughed and I thought MITRE is the only thing I use to cut wood with.
Well, luckily that section is 30% of the exam, so you still have 70% of the exam if you're not so strong in that particular concept. But kind of looking again at that forward thinking piece of the exam that we talked about earlier, that's kind of where that domain 4.0 comes into play. It's really the kind of focus on the newest and fastest evolving technology. And Cisco is looking for candidates who understand how security integrates with modern automated environments. This also might be of interest to you, Matt, too, because automation is part of it. So to start kind of AI, it's obviously playing a growing role in security, whether it's through threat detection, behavioral analytics, or even automated response. So expect to be tested on how AI fits into infrastructure security, especially at scale. Then there's automation. You'll want to be familiar with tools and features like APIs, infrastructure as code, SOAR platforms, and telemetry pipelines. These all support proactive and scalable security posture. And lastly, there's DevSecOps. So it's not just about security teams anymore. Developers are part of the equation now too. And that's what Cisco is saying here. This exam, it may ask you about integrating security into CI/CD pipelines, container scanning, or enforcing policies through automation. So for this domain, be ready to show how you design security in an automated, AI-driven, cloud-native world. Word salad, boom.
This is this starts to bleed into the concept that the people who are past this exam, I mean, I was joking around before, but they are going to be superheroes because each of those elements, even when you get into the DevOps perspective of it, there's a security layer. You're now exposing production code or at its base level to users, right, and having to have a security model in place for the Git repositories, for the CI/CD pipelines, for the testing strategies, for all of those services that are underlying are absolutely key. And then that ties into the automation strategy for the infrastructure. So it all feeds into itself. But man, what a broad, exciting, honestly, exam you guys got going here.
Cover some really good, really good topics.
All right, guys. So I've done something a little fun here. I've got an example question of what you might expect to see on the exam. It's not an actual question directly from the exam, but just to kind of give you an idea. I have not provided you guys this question beforehand, so I'm really excited to kind of test and see what you know already today.
Way to put us on the spot.
What can I say? It's your turn to be in the hot seat, Kareem. So here's the question. An organization has recently adopted a hybrid work model, permitting employees to work both in the office and remotely. The IT department is responsible for improving the security architecture to meet the following requirements: ensure that all users are authenticated, manage and secure employees' corporate and personal devices, and prevent access to, use of, and sharing of sensitive data. Which security solution might be implemented to meet the requirement? We've got 4 options there: data loss prevention, a zero trust security model, a security information and event management tool, or multi-factor authentication.
So I know it's not data loss prevention. And I have a guess too. And I know it's not multi-factor authentication. So my guess would be B, zero trust security model.
That was my guess.
Well, you guys are good guessers because that actually is the correct answer. Zero trust security model. Maybe you guys are a little bit more ready for this exam than you think.
Nope.
Not at all. I'm going to look up what NIST means after this. Tell us a little bit about how people can prepare for this exam. Kareem and I are sitting there going, no way we could pass it today. If we wanted to, what would we expect to go through?
So aside from the blueprint, Cisco U is a great resource to use. That's u.cisco.com. And we're actually going to have a learning path that supports the SDSI exam preparation. So this learning path is going to be structured across 6 different tracks, and each one aligns closely with the topics that you'll see on the exam. It's designed to help you build upon your skills step by step, from foundational concepts all the way through advanced design. And you'll see that a lot of these different tracks here and the different modules actually have lab components associated with them too. So you'll be able to get hands-on in a lab environment directly inside of Cisco U. We also have free tutorials that are also going to be available to support those who are studying for the SDSI exam. And that'll cover topics like zero trust, like eBPF, and infrastructure as code as an example. So definitely check out u.cisco.com as you're preparing for this exam as well.
Well, Kyle, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Snackers, if you want to prove yourself to be a security superhero, check out the Designing Cisco Security Infrastructure, or SDSI exam. If you feel like you're ready, if you're not ready yet, check out the tracks on Cisco U. And Kyle, thank you so much for your time here, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, Kyle. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Boom.